So, the Nashville shooting. In this podcast, I'm going to go over my intention with it. I'm going to talk about gun control, teachers, and guns, talk about the left and the right, what they both want out of this situation. How do we find peace in the suffering? Why aren't they going to release the manifesto? And what does this really mean for the trans community? All of that in this week's episode.
Traveling to consciousness, exploring spiritual journeys to find answers in uncertainty.
What is up, conscious monkeys? Welcome back to another episode of Traveling to Consciousness. As always, I'm your host, Clayton. And in this week's episode, we are talking about a touchy subject, one that is a little bit more touchy than others for so many reasons. And it's the return of spiritual politics, as you might be aware of. I've talked about these every now and then whenever there is a national story that gets my attention, which has not occurred for a while, which is always a good thing. But whenever it does occur, I want to do my best to shine light in a dark place. I want to do my best to try to find the core parts of these issues that we can all agree upon at some level and hopefully bring some humanity to such tragic situations. I mean, that's my intention. That's the best I can do. I want to use this platform to do such a thing. So let's see if we can do something. I get close. And for those of you who are not aware, there was a shooting in Nashville, I believe 2 days ago. 6 people were killed, and unfortunately also 3 children. And it's terrible. I mean, there's not really much more to say about that. It's a terrible situation. It's not something that I'm sure anybody was expecting. And yeah, there was like texts and stuff she was like even talking about before doing it, or he, I guess. I think it's a he. I apologize. I did not. I don't mean to be misgendering, if you will, but I do believe it's a he. It was a girl who transitioned to a guy who ended up doing the shooting. Oh, man. So I also want to be careful with this because I know in the past I have been a little bit more careless with putting out these spiritual politics. I know people have loved them, but I still feel like whenever it's such a touchy subject, there's more humanity that I need to inject in it. Because I believe in the past, I don't know if there was a shooting or what, but there was an element of me is like, oh, reincarnation's a thing, so like it's not a big deal, right? They all signed up for this. But whenever I've talked like that, and even saying it right now, something feels wrong about that. Something feels a little bit inhumane, if you will. It seems like it devalues the human life a little bit. And that was certainly something that since the last spiritual politics, I have certainly grasped a little bit more. Something that I've thought about a little bit more. And something that I'm hoping I can bring some more humanity to in this conversation. So let's start off with the big conversation that everyone always talks about whenever there's a school shooting, which is, what do we do about it? Right? Gun control. We need to have teachers with guns, say the right. We need government to take away their guns, says the left. And something that kind of came to me, and hopefully this is maybe something that people haven't really acknowledged, but it's that both sides want a deterrent. I think that's what we can all agree upon, right? And maybe it's so obvious that I don't even need to say it, but it seems to me as though whenever these conversations occur, nobody wants to bring it to a human level, right? Both sides of the aisle just want to implement a deterrent at the core fundamental root of it, right? They want a deterrent. They want to deter this from happening, which I believe is a great way to go about it, right? I think they're so. I just if you ever get into a political conversation, just to wrap that section of it up, if you ever get into a political conversation with friends or families, and you're saying gun control and they're saying arm the teachers with guns, at least start from a place that you both agree that you want some sort of deterrent. I believe that there's probably even a deeper issue here, though. And of course, that's mental health. Mental health, because and I and I and I hesitate to kind of go through the next part because it's going to be based on assumption. And the questions we got to ask is like, why won't they release the manifesto, right? And I know I'm sidestepping the mental health piece, but I'm going to kind of wrap that in here. The person wrote a manifesto. They won't release it. I'm sure it's one of those things that they're not going to release for a while, because the longer you go without releasing something, the fewer people that will actually read it or pay attention to it. And I can almost guarantee you, and maybe that's the wrong thing for me to do, but I could almost guarantee you that the mindset will be along the lines of the world is rotten, the world is filled with suffering and evil, and so I want to take out as many people as possible in order to alleviate their suffering. And here's the weird thing, especially coming from a place of reincarnation and spirituality, is that there is an element of truth to that. And stick with me here. I'm not saying it's the ultimate truth, but if you try to get your head into the mindset of someone who would carry out such a horrific act, it feels as though there is suffering in this world. I know everybody listening has probably had a heartbreak, or everybody listening has lost someone that they love. And I mean, look at this situation. By doing this thing, they legitimately left more suffering in their wake, which is obviously the irony of it all. The suffering of the parents, the suffering of that entire school, the suffering of actually having more people be more afraid to go to school. So it's kind of ironic, now that I'm saying it out loud, that their intention is probably end the human suffering, the state of suffering that is being human. Because again, there's the point. The point is like, we all agree. I assume you agree if you're listening to this podcast. Maybe you don't. That's okay. But I believe that we are this immortal soul with a couple layers on us, and one of those layers is being human. Being human is one of the layers that we are wearing, right? So yes, there are going to be elements of this game of life that are not intrinsic to our natural state of being this pure soul of cosmic and God essence, if you will. But you got to realize, and what hopefully the conversation can be around, if, for some reason someone listening is ever even thinking about this, that the world's suffering, it's like, yeah, but are you coming into this plane of existence? What are you going to do? Are you going to do something that adds more suffering to it? Or are you going to do something that heals suffering around you? Because, like, on the surface, I'm all on board. Yes, there is suffering. I mean, hell, the person you love breaks up with you. You're going to suffer. You go to the gym to work out, to break down your muscles so that you can get better. You're going to suffer. You want to get a six pack. You need to eat the right food. There is going to be suffer involved with that. You can't just eat sugar. Even if you eat sugar, if you eat too much sugar, you're going to suffer. So the question becomes is, how can you take actions? How can you yourself suffer the least amount possible that can also reduce the suffering of other people around you? And I truly believe this comes into karmic cycles and karmic, the karmic pattern of everything. And that's where kind of this gets a little touchy, because it's like, and I offer this information as hopefully a way that can hopefully reduce your suffering if you are energetically torn up about these kids losing their lives, or anytime kids have lost their lives, right? it's that we chose our life. And I guess this is my belief. I feel like there's a lot of things that validate this. So, again, we got to be on board. My computer just glitched out. So 1 second. I didn't know it could still do that. Um, Sorry about that. I felt like I was on a roll. I didn't think my computer was going to black out like that. Um, so right. So what I believe and what I think is probably been proven time and time again by near-death experiencers, people who have done channeling. I mean, any channel text you find, a lot of religions, is that reincarnation is a thing, and it seems all probable. Like, I mean, I pretty much know this, I guess, at this point, but I'm just like leaving the gap in case you don't. Is that we choose our next life? We chose the experiences we were going to have in this life. So the reason I bring this up is to alleviate your suffering, because it could be that these kids chose for this path of their life. Maybe there was karma in their past lives that they were trying to clear, and this is a huge way in order for them to clear it, you know? But I mean, and it gets weird, and it's kind of difficult, right? Like, I don't want to try to sit here and play God and say, oh, I know that this is balancing the scales. For all I know, maybe it did make the scales worse. But what we can do is bring this into the individual, bring it into yourself, bring it into myself. How can I, Clayton Terry, how can you, amazing conscious monkey listening to this, reduce the suffering in your life because of this incident the best way that you possibly can? I guess mine is using my voice on this platform to help people see a new angle of all of this, right? See a new light behind this. And that's kind of why I bring up the manifesto. Is I'm sure they're gonna release a manifesto, and maybe it's the word, but I'm sure it'd be similar to all the other ones, that the earth and human existence is suffering. And so I want to free other people. Or maybe they're mad at the world because the world has wronged them so many times. So it's I guess it's not fair to make those types of assumptions. But this is spiritual politics. So bringing it back to a political place, we got to find that healthy middle. We got to find that middle ground. We need to do the best that we can in order to have the change that is best for everyone. And it's difficult, right? Because we want to sit here and complain. If you want to have a conversation with your parents or your friends about it, it's like there's a piece of you that feels like we had the conversation, but we're not in a place to be able to do anything, right? And I think if there's just a way that you can find it, in your heart, forgiveness for this person that caused such a horrific act. Number one, I think that can heal a lot of healing. I think it's that the healing of that is more profound than we give it credit for. I also truly believe that if you live your best life, that is like what we can do, right? Like, this is negative, it's, I don't really want to carve it down to this, but it is negative energy, right? At the end of the day, this is very negative. It takes us down to a lower vibration. And man, this is difficult. This is obviously a very difficult one. The crux of it is to be able to do the best that you can do. I mean, and even count every day as a blessing. I really think, I guess that's the best way that you can kind of reel it in or bring it back to understanding, right? Feel grateful that you weren't the one then, whenever you were 6 years old or in middle school, whatever it was, who was in this situation, because people don't make it to your age, you know? Hell, we're very fortunate. We're very fortunate. So hopefully you can use this to find a piece of gratitude in your life that you weren't in that situation. So other than that, I want to encourage you guys, if you're feeling it, feels weird. It feels weird to promote something after going through this whole thing, but I do want to let you know that the shirts are available. Traveling to Consciousness Search, go grab them in the link below. I've been getting great feedback on them. Great feedback. People are loving them. I'm loving it myself. I'm going to be putting in the works for another one where we actually get some Conscious Monkey merchandise printed on them. And yeah, hopefully you guys all stay sane, stay healthy, stay positive. Stay positive. That doesn't feel right. Do your best to eliminate suffering, whether it's for yourself first and then for others, however you can do it. Whatever you see someone suffering, do the best you can to shine that light in that dark place. Do your best. And we'll talk about it. If not soon, we'll for sure talk about it in the sixth dimension.